Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm hoping everything is working. It appears to be.
Was this just a coincidence?
Yes, I think we're good. Okay. Before we get into it, I want to read a script for my YouTube channel. It's for my main channel. Should probably release in the next week or two, but I've been scripting videos properly lately, and I have a script written here. I meant to read it on Wednesday on Unfiltered, but decided to... well, it wasn't ready yet, but this one should be ready. Okay. Ready for the script? Let me just pull it up here. Okay. It's it's 2,500 words almost. In 1934, 60,000 farmers in southern Germany 60,000 farmers in southern Germany threatened to leave the Nazi Party. They packed churches, sang hymns in the streets while police watched, and told the government they would rebel. The regime backed down. It was one of the only times in the entire Third Reich that organized popular resistance actually forced Hitler to retreat. Let me zoom in actually on this so that I can see it better. That'll do. They did it because Hitler had their bishop arrested. They never did that for the Jews. And that pattern, the church defending itself but not the vulnerable, isn't a German problem. It's a Christian nationalism problem. And it's still happening today. So let's talk about what Christian nationalism is. Because it's not just Christians who happen to be patriotic. It's something else. It's the fusion of faith and national identity until the two become the same thing. Where defending the nation feels like defending God. Where criticizing Where criticizing the government feels like blasphemy, and where political loyalty becomes a spiritual virtue. Where the test of whether you're a real Christian is whether you support the right political movement. And the version of this that existed in Germany didn't start with the Nazis. It was generational. Martin Niemöller, the pastor who wrote the famous poem, First They Came for the Communists, he grew up in a household where there were two rules nobody questioned. A good Christian is a good citizen, and a good Christian is a good soldier. His father was a Lutheran pastor in the 1890s, and Niemöller later said there was an invisible sign above the church door, for monarchists only. A social democrat couldn't be a real Christian. That was 1892, 40 years before Hitler took power, 3 years after he was born. The infrastructure was already there. Hang on. This is the wrong fucking script. Damn it. No. Yes, it is the wrong fucking script. Damn it. All right, I'm sorry. That was my old script that I didn't finish. I'm sorry, guys. Let me pull up the right one, the new one. I didn't think I talked about Niemöller in this one. Scripts. Yes, okay, here we go. This is the correct script. Try again. There's a pattern that shows up in Christian nationalist movements. The beliefs can't survive public scrutiny. The movement needs a gap between what it actually believes and what it's willing to say publicly. And when someone closes that gap, when someone says the quiet part at full volume where general society can hear, the movement destroys the person. Not the idea, the person. Then it builds the idea anyway through quieter channels. That's what happened in Berlin in 1933. And that's what's happening right now. Let's get into it. It's November 13th, 1933, a Monday night in Berlin, dark and freezing. The Sportpalast, this massive indoor arena in Schönenberg district, the same venue the Nazis used for their biggest political rallies, is packed. 20,000 Deutsche Christen, the pro-Nazi faction inside the German Protestant church, filling the seats and standing galleries. Swastika banners hanging next to Christian crosses. Two stenographers sitting near the podium, recording simultaneously. the same protocol they used for the Führer's own speeches. The event's been billed as a church mission rally in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther, quote unquote, the founder of Protestantism. But it doesn't look like church. It looks like a political rally with hymns. A high school geography teacher named Reinhold Krauss walks to the podium. And for the next 2 hours, he tells 20,000 people exactly what the movement believes. No filter, no diplomatic packaging, just the program delivered at volume to a room of people who agree with every word of it. He opens by fusing Luther and Hitler into a single arc of German liberation. Krauss says Luther started the work and Hitler finished it. Strong applause. Then he makes a totalitarian claim out loud. The state's authority extends to the church. The church doesn't partner with the state. It gets absorbed into it. Applause. Then he gets into the point of the rally. He wants the Old Testament thrown out of the Christian Bible. He calls it Stories of Cattle Traders and Pimps. He calls it one of the most dubious books in the history of the world. He refers to the Apostle Paul as Rabbi Paul, a Jewish interloper who hijacked Jesus' message. He demands that anyone of Jewish descent be expelled from the church, not just from the pulpit, but from the pews. Someone in the crowd shouts, "We don't need white Jews." Ethnic Germans who defended Jewish Christians were considered racially contaminated. Krauss picks it up from the podium. Quote, "We don't need any Jews in the church at all." Strong applause. And then he gives them the replacement creed, the line that compresses the entire theology into one sentence. You, the individual, are nothing. Your people are everything. 20,000 people applauded that. The entire DC leadership the entire Deutsche Christian leadership shook his hand afterward. The movement's national leader congratulated him personally before catching the last train south. Krauss and his inner circle went to a coffee house near Spittelmarkt and toasted what they thought was a breakthrough, the night the movement's theology had finally been delivered at scale. I'm just checking. Hang on. I'm sorry. Yeah, all right. By morning, the same leadership that shook his hand voted to strip him of every office in the movement. In his memoirs, written 35 years later, he complained about cancel culture without talking about it specifically. He said they didn't even give him a hearing, quote unquote. By the way, I translated those memoirs, never before translated to English, and I translated them to English. I used Google Translate, and then I went through all of the major contentious words and expanded on it with basically an annotation. I annotated it. The word folkish, the word evangelische. I explained that it doesn't mean evangelical. It can mean Christian or Protestant or whatever. Anyway, yeah. I've actually translated a bunch of stuff lately from German because I'm writing a book on this subject. It's called God's People, Christian National... Sorry, there's a really cool guy out there with his car. I can tell he's cool because he's revving his engine loud enough to blow my fucking eardrums out, you know? That's a sure sign that whoever is behind the steering wheel in that car is so fucking cool. So cool. They're way cooler than I will ever be when they can blow people's eardrums out when they're driving their car. Anyway, sorry. A little aside there. This script is basically me condensing my book, God's People, Christian Nationalism, and the Reich Churches. It is 11 biographical essays that hit on kind of every major beat of the Kirchenkampf, the church struggle, where Hitler tried to commandeer control of the Protestant church. It's 12 biographical essays. Some of them are about people who were nobodies but had one-star moment. And one of those people was Reinhold Krauss. Because he, as a Christian nationalist, the word he used to describe himself, wanted to merge church and state together, like a lot of people we know today. Doug Wilson, Joel Webbin, people that I cover regularly. So Reinhold Krauss has a whole chapter in there, chapter 6. Grundmann has another chapter. I forget his first name. I don't know his first name. I just know him by Grundmann, I guess. Anyway, Grundmann, he created the theology behind the Deutsche Christen, or the Christian nationalists of that time and place. And I also have a biography essay on Hitler and Pope Pius XI, Pope Pius XII, the two popes through World War II, Theophil Worm, Karl Barth, Martin Niemöller, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and then Grundmann, as I mentioned. And then Joseph Rutherford. He's in there. I decided he belongs in this story too, because he was part of it. And I talk about the 3 methods of accommodation that these people tried. The popes tried the Reichskonkordat. They tried to make a deal to control the schools and the hospitals. In trade, their bishops would pledge an oath of loyalty to Hitler. And it didn't work. For the Protestant church, there was the church struggle, and where there was a hostile takeover. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, it was the declaration of facts. They tried to gain that leverage that the others had, that Jehovah's Witnesses did not. And when they failed to gain that leverage, they had the political and moral freedom to fight against the Third Reich at full force. Scorched earth, releasing, concentration camp plans in their yearbooks and the whole 9 yards. Jehovah's Witnesses tried capitulation and accommodation. It failed. And they went scorched earth against them. That's the point of Christian nationalism, ultimately. When Christianity merges with the state has leverage on Christianity, and vice versa. They're intertwined, they're entangled, and you no longer have the ability to view situations with complete moral clarity. As moral arbiters, you don't have the ability to act freely because you have obligations as an institution when you're entangled with the state. That's the thesis of the book, and I hope you guys give it a read. It's not out yet, but it will be soon. Keep a lookout for it. Actually, it may be out by the time you see this. Check the description. Let me say that again. That's the thesis of the book. Check the description. It may already be out. I'm not sure when you're watching this. God's People, Christian Nationalism, and the Third Reich. Or Christian Nationalism and the Christian Nationalism and the Reich churches. That's it. Anyway, let's continue. By morning, the same leadership that shook his hand voted to strip him of every office in the movement. In his memoirs, written 35 years later, he complained about cancel culture without talking about it specifically. He said they didn't even give him a hearing, quote unquote. The speech didn't change overnight. The ideas didn't change. What changed was the foreign correspondence that had been in the room. What changed was that foreign correspondents had been in the room. The morning papers carried what Krauss said, and the movement's entire strategy, keep the theology implicit, keep the politics explicit, had been inverted for one evening by somebody who said what everybody in the Sport Palace already believed, in front of people who could print it. They destroyed him for the volume, not for the ideas. 6 years later, a theologian named Walter Grundmann, that's it, Walter, founded the Institute for the Study and Elimination of Jewish Influence on German Church Life, an actual academic institution housed at the University of Jena, founded by 11 regional churches. And it did everything Krauss had asked for from that podium. It produced a de-Judaized New Testament. It printed 200,000 copies by the end of 1941. An altered hymnal a modified catechism, the Old Testament removed, Rabbi Paul stripped of his Jewishness. Every single demand from the Sport Palace speech, built quietly through an institute instead of a rally. The man who said it out loud was destroyed. The program he described was implemented in full. Same beliefs, different volume. That's the pattern. And by the way, the ideas Krauss delivered at the Sport Palace were not new. The ideas Krauss delivered at the Sport Palace weren't new. They'd been circulating in Christian nationalist circles for 50 years before that night. A biblical scholar named Paul de Lagarde argued in the 1880s that Christianity needed to be purged of its Jewish roots and rebuilt on Germanic spiritual foundations. A Berlin schoolteacher named Joachim Kurd Niedlich published a pamphlet in 1921 called Yahweh or Jesus, laying out the exact same program. Purge the Old Testament, dismiss Paul, recast Jesus as a German hero. Krauss heard Niedlich lecture in 1920, visited his apartment and became his protege. The theology traveled person to person across decades. And by the way, I also translated Yahweh or Jesus. That one was really, really hard to track down. I literally had to communicate with archives in Germany, in German. I don't speak German, not very well. I've been relying on Google Translate a lot. I'm considering republishing Yahweh or Jesus because it's an original Christian nationalist document, maybe annotated. When the movement that became the Deutsche Christen was getting organized, the founders wanted to call themselves Evangelische Nationalisten, Christian nationalists. Hitler rejected the name. He understood what Krauss didn't, that it advertised what the movement actually was. He gave them Deutsche Christen instead, German Christians. A name that sounds like a description, not a program. Every Christian in Germany could hear themselves in it. Hitler replaced a program with a mirror, but the original name was the honest one. They were Christian nationalists. The nationalism was the engine. No, let me reword that. This is a metaphor that I meant to remove before or change. I'm not using the engine and vehicle metaphor anymore. The metaphor is a snake. You know, Christian nationalism is the snake that shed its skin and disappeared to come up and infect a future generation with its garbage. But it doesn't really work here. The nationalism was the snake, the Nazism was the vehicle. The nationalism, well, the analogy or the metaphor is the Christian nationalism was the engine, Nazism was the vehicle. But transferring that onto the snake analogy, the nationalism was the snake. Nazism was the plane. Snakes on a plane. I've had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane. That's not going to work. I'm going to cut the analogy. Yeah. Christian nationalism would... All right, let me rephrase. Christian nationalism was there long before Nazism showed up, and it would remain long after. Okay. It's a funny analogy. Should I just put it in there completely fucking deadpan, 100% serious? I think I'm going to. Yeah, I'm going to. Christian nationalism was the snake. Nazism was the plane. Just completely deadpan. Christian nationalism was the snake. Nazism was the plane. Okay. All right. So that's 1933. Now let's talk about 2025. All right, I have Doug Wilson cited for this moment. Let me pull up the clip for him. It was Catholic practices restricted. Here.
Let me give you a couple of very practical examples. Okay. Could Muslims be here? Live? Yes, they could be. Could they hold political office? No. Could Muslims gather together with their Muslim family and friends to pray to Allah? Yes. Right? Could you have a mosque? Yes. Could they have a minaret, a prayer tower that issues the public call to prayer? No, because the public spaces belong to Christ. Right? We're a Christian nation. So church bells are okay. Church bells are okay, but a Muslim call to prayer in the public space would not be okay. Catholic church bells would be okay, right? Catholic church bells would be okay, but a parade in honor of the Virgin Mary, carrying an image of the Virgin Mary down Main Street, no, right? So
what about the
basically
Eucharist? What about the Eucharist? What about a Eucharistic procession?
That's a new one. I would say probably not. It would depend on what was being done around it, how it was being conducted. But basically, public displays of idolatry, what the Protestant foundation of the law would consider to be idolatry, would not be allowed. So you wouldn't have a Hindu procession with a Hindu god. You wouldn't have a procession of the Virgin Mary.
All right, one quick note. Put this before the clip actually plays. This is Doug Wilson on his Ask a Christian Nationalist segment, talking to a fellow religious believer. Insert clip. No Muslims holding office. No Muslim prayer calls. No Catholic Eucharistic processions. No Hindu processions. The public space belongs to Christ, specifically Protestant Christ. That's the program. And notice the tone. He's calm. He's using practical examples. He sounds like somebody working through a zoning issue, not somebody describing a theocratic state where one denomination's theology determines what's legal in public life. The packaging is reasonable. The content is Krauss's. All right, next clip. The next one is this. How long is this one? 118? Okay.
I had a skirmish on Twitter with someone a few weeks ago where they pointed out there was a hubbub about, I just came back from NatCon 4 in Washington, D.C., and that was an eclectic affair because there were Catholics and Protestants and Jews and a couple of Hindus. And there were people raising an uproar. What are you doing with Hindus at this political thing? And I wrote, well, in the republic I envision, Hindus would not be able to hold political office. Are you in? Right? Yeah. And the person, no. I want Hindus to be able to run for political office in America. And I said, okay, so you're criticizing me for being willing to talk to a Hindu at a conference, and you're willing to be governed by Hindus? And this makes no sense. Yeah. So in the Christian Nationalist Project, we don't want this smudge or hodgepodge. We want it to be explicitly Christian. We would want prayers at the political convention to be to God the Father in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. That's how we want the prayers to go.
Okay, let me write this down. Hang on. Same program, different room. This is effectively racial theology. The filter's a little looser here because the audience is friendlier. We don't want this smudge or hodgepodge. We want it to be explicitly Christian. All right, let me say that again. Quote, we don't want this smudge or hodgepodge. We want it to be explicitly Christian, unquote. Prayers at political conventions to God the Father in the name of Jesus Christ. non-Christians barred from office. He'll say that at a conference. He won't say it on Michael Knowles' show. At Knowles' show, he says this. Hold on.
What is Christian nationalism, and why do these guys hate you so much?
I've got several short definitions. One is I'm a Christian and I love my country. So I don't want to have my Christianity in one compartment and my patriotism in another compartment. I believe that, and that leads to the second short form definition, which is Christian nationalism is the belief that Americans should stop making God angry. So basically, politics is the art of the possible. So in the current moment, I want to stand with Catholics, shoulder to shoulder, against the secular Klingons.
It does seem to me we do have an established national religion. It is liberal progressivism. We have a liturgical calendar with all the secular saints, whether we're talking about Martin Luther King or Harvey Milk. We've got liturgical seasons even. I think Pride used to be a week and then a month. Now it's roughly half a year and growing. We have, we have prayers and hymns, the Black national anthem that they're trying to add to the NFL. That's part of the liturgy of liberalism. So we have all of these things. And if you contradict it, you will be faced with far greater punishment than any medieval inquisition. So I totally agree with you. There is a common enemy here.
Quick note, I might cut out Michael Knowles' last half of that. It wasn't super relevant to the video. Let's continue the script. Quote, I'm a Christian and I love my country, unquote. That's it. That's the public-facing version. Same person, same beliefs, different volume. Because the room is different. On a mainstream conservative show, he's a patriot defending Christianity from secular overreach. At a conference full of allies, he's describing a state where your religion determines whether you can hold office. The content is identical. The packaging changes by venue. And then there's the Disneyland moment. Let me find it.
So let me.
Hold on.
If
Nope. Nope. Not that one.
Yeah.
Here. This is the one. Hang on.
If we're trying to establish a Christian country, should we have our borders open or allow Muslims to come in and live in a country that's distinctly Christian?
I would say no in any kind of significant number, because it's the problem of assimilation. So if in a Christian republic could a Muslim come and visit Disneyland? Well, sure. But in a Christian republic, there might not be a Disneyland. but let's not get led astray. Yeah, could they? There's no border policy in terms of visiting and that sort of thing. If we were a Christian nation, then let's say a Muslim moved here, and let's say he was allowed to green card it, and he was settled down here. In the ideal setup, he couldn't hold office. He could, because we're a Christian nation, and he's not a Christian. Right. But that doesn't mean we imprison him or torture him.
Let me just edit this. Did you catch that? Could a Muslim come and visit Disneyland? Sure, but in a Christian republic, there might not be a Disneyland. Let's not let us get astray. The mask slipped for half a second and he sealed it back up. The difference is that Krauss was standing in front of stenographers and foreign correspondents, and Wilson's on a podcast for an audience that already agrees with him. The slip was intentional here because of the audience he was in front of. But the reflex is exactly the same. The moment the program becomes visible, the people... Nope, I gotta fix that. Just show. But the reflex is exactly the same. Just show glimpses. No, let me that's still not good. But the lesson was learned. Don't play whole hand. Hit in the wrong place. Time. But the lesson was learned. Don't play your whole hand. If you play it in the wrong place and time, you could end up like Krauss. And it's not just Wilson. Listen to what sitting Oklahoma State legislator Dusty Devers says at a panel with Wilson. Let me play this one. This one is wild, dude.
When we saw churches closing for long periods, we saw people, with this love your neighbor propaganda that was really submit to your neighbor and not submit to God, submit to the powers that be. And a lot of us were saying the powers that be don't have jurisdiction. They're illegitimate. And why have we been bowing to these powers that are just pseudo? It's our fault. It's the fault of pastors for not telling us better. And if you don't have strong pastors that are preaching the authority of God from the scriptures and teaching their people that the authority lies in the scriptures and not in the culture or in your...
Sorry, gotta fix this. I didn't mean to minimize it.
The authority lies in the scriptures and not in the culture or in your leaders, but it's in the scriptures, and we all have to bow to the same standard. Then the pews are going to establish the culture, and the culture then establishes your law, because power arises from the people. And what we ended up with was just a whole bunch of people who were willing to be led by weak leaders. And I think by God's grace, the sloth says, or the sluggard says, there's a lion in the streets, we'll all be killed. And instead of saying, oh no, there's a lion in the streets, I think God's raising up a bunch of men that say, let's go get the lion, boys. Let's go kill him. And that's the point. If there's a lion, then let's go. If there's not, then we just proved you wrong.
Let's go kill them. Love your neighbor propaganda. Think about what he just said. He's not rejecting a Christian teaching. He's reclassifying it. Love your neighbor stays in the Bible. It just gets recategorized as something the enemy weaponized against real Christians. That's how you purge a doctrine without admitting you're purging it. The Deutsche Christen didn't say we're throwing out the Old Testament because we don't like it. They said the Old Testament was racially alien to the German soul. Same method. Reframe the inconvenient teaching as an enemy import. Keep the language, replace the content. All right, next one is Joel Webben. I have two more clips. Yes, two more clips that I want to hit. It is this one? Patriarchy panel? Yes, this one, I believe.
Or is Christian nationalism just a modern phrase for theonomy, or are there actually some distinctions? If so, what are they?
The Venn diagrams, it's not circles that map onto each other perfectly, but there are a lot of things that everybody who loves God, loves his word, wants to see. And I think we would be very pleased with most of it. Compared to what we're dealing with now, which is just ungodliness and anarchy on stilts, we are tumbling headlong into the abyss. I would take a theonomist. I would take a Christian nationalist of Stephen's stripe. I'd be delighted with any of them.
The CN guys that I talk to offline, they seem very comfortable with a
CN in this context means Christian nationalist.
Slim minority getting it done,
True.
At least initially. You know this crew much more than I do. You've been around the block. The theonomist. I'm thinking the theonomists of old. I'm thinking of Bonson. I'm thinking, were they as comfortable as some of the CN young bucks with a minority approach of it's top down first that leads them to bottom up?
I believe the old guard theonomists and their heirs would think that a top-down Christian prince would be a good thing. They would applaud it, but they would have they wouldn't have high hopes for the long run, because they would say this is great, but going back to what you said, we need the hearts of the people.
That's Joel Webben openly discussing the tactical question: bottom up through revival or top down through a leader who imposes it. And he's noting that younger Christian nationalist guys are comfortable with both. That's the 1932 playbook spoken out loud. A Nazi deputy named Wilhelm Kubi published an article in the party newspaper that year telling readers exactly how to take over the Protestant church from the inside. Register on parish voter rolls, flood the elections with organized voters, capture the governance structures, bottom up. Then they installed a Reich bishop from the top down. Same two-track strategy. Webben is describing it as an analytical observation about his own movement, on camera, at a panel. And then Wilson ties it all together. Quick note, that 1932 Kubi article from the Völkische Beobachter, I translated that. I found a copy from an archive. It was very difficult to track down, and I translated it myself. Never before seen in English. It's also going to be in my new book, God's People. Keep a lookout for it. Josiah. Here. Is this the one? I have 2 copies of this. I believe this is the right one.
If we got a King Josiah, I would take it. He would. You can do an awful lot of good, top down. So I would thank God. I would rejoice in it. I would pray for him.
You know what? I should give context first. In case some people don't know the Bible references, let me explain. Josiah was the king who imposed top-down religious reform and physically destroyed the altars of every other religion in his kingdom, burned the bones of foreign priests on their own altars, and Wilson says he'd take it. Then he escalates. It looks like we might get a Jehu, but I'll take the Jehu. Jehu came to power through a military coup, assassinated the sitting king, and slaughtered every priest of a rival religion by luring them to a temple under false pretenses and massacring them. Wilson is saying, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll continue.
If we got a King Josiah, I would take it. He would. You can do an awful lot of good, top down. So I would thank God. I would rejoice in it. I would pray for him. I would also be aware that after King Josiah died, the people went back very quickly to the old ways. So it's got to be, I think it has to be both. You have to have leadership, genuine leadership. A godly prince, godly president, godly legislators are used by God to do good. But the people have got to respond in true faith. There's got to be a genuine thing there. And so I would like to see it meet in the middle. We've been praying for a Josiah, and it looks like in this next election we might get a Jehu. But I'll take the Jehu.
Dusty, any thoughts?
Yeah. So if we get a Josiah,
I think that was the end of the important part. Wilson is saying, in biblical code that his audience understands perfectly, that he'd accept a violent strongman who seizes power and purges the religious opposition, as long as the result is a Christian state. And the room is fine with it, because he knows his audience. The Sportpalast was fine with it too. The beliefs are different. The filter is the same. The Deutsche Christen learned the hard way that their program couldn't survive being stated plainly in public, and the modern Christian nationalist movement internalized that lesson. Wilson says it in pieces, in different rooms, at different volumes, and maintains deniability across all of them. The movement understood the importance of subtlety before he stepped in front of the camera. When a movement's leader says one thing on a mainstream show and a more obvious version of the same thing at a friendly conference, when the content is the same but the volume changes depending on who's in the room, you're watching the gap in real time. The beliefs that can't survive being stated openly is the most public setting. The beliefs that can't survive being stated openly in the most public setting are the beliefs that tell you what the movement actually is. The Deutsche Christian knew that in 1933. They shook Krauss's hand at midnight and destroyed him by morning. The beliefs were only visible as long as the beliefs were only viable as long as they stayed implicit. The moment they became explicit, the movement had to choose: own the beliefs or disown the believer. They disowned the believer in Krauss's case, and they built the beliefs into an institution. That's the pattern. It was the pattern in 1933. It's the pattern now. The engine hasn't changed. They were Christian nationalists before they were German Christians, and they're Christian nationalists now. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for watching, guys. That was way longer than I intended, but I played like 6 clips. I thought it was going to be a lot shorter than the 6 clips, but that's okay. I can slim down the clips. Let me just mark that down with my timestamps. 1 second here, please. Christian nationalism. 39 minutes. All right, let's hit the first of the main stories. Let's talk about Tucker. All right, this one, and let me find a couple more Tucker clips. Hold on, I'm just looking here. Apologizes. Yeah.
Why can't this president or any...
Yeah, let's watch this one too. All right. So as many people know, there was an assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Watching Tucker Carlson react to it is fascinating. Like, dissecting his propaganda is absolutely fascinating to watch. Listen to what he said here.
Was this just a coincidence or another staged incident?
Tonight will be classic. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room.
That really was said, apparently. God, I want to call her Kayleigh McEnany or McEnany or whatever the hell, but that's not her. This is oh my God, what's this woman's name? I suddenly cannot remember. Holy heckers, somebody help me out here. Caroline Leavitt. That's it. Thank you.
Hours before the chaos, Caroline Leavitt told America to watch tonight because Donald Trump would bring the heat and there would be shots fired. Then suddenly, real shots were fired near the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Well, it is America, you know. I mean, I'm not that surprised to find out that shots were fired in any situation, truthfully. I know that there are going to be people claiming that this is staged, it's fake, and all that junk. You know, Hitler, there were 42 assassination attempts against Hitler. There's no reason to think that he didn't need to fake any of them. Why would he? There's always somebody out there trying to get him. Like, why attribute malice to that or to something that stupidity can be attributed to or whatever? Or why attribute malice when there's a perfectly logical explanation here, you know?
Shots fired, the Secret Service rushes in and they let Trump continue to sit there. And now they're going to resume the White House Correspondents' Dinner and Trump still plans to deliver a speech. I'm not saying this was staged to boost Trump's tanking approval numbers, but it's...
That is exactly what he is saying. And I love how he's pretending otherwise here. It's the thinnest veil. It is so thinly veiled. Everybody knows what you're implying, Tucker.
Plans to deliver a speech. I'm not saying this was staged to boost Trump's tanking approval numbers, but it certainly looks odd. Trump was rushed out, guests hid under tables, Secret Service swarmed the room.
And Trump ate shit on his way out the door. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Trump basically, he had no clue what was going on. He's just along for the ride, just hanging out there, chilling, killing, you know, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all, while people are running for their fucking lives. And so the Secret Service comes in, they snag him, and he trips and falls and eats shit. It was so funny. I gotta show it. I have to show this. Let me see if, oh God, I can't search for this. I was gonna search for Trump eats shit while running. You know, there's some AI video on the twit of that, so I shouldn't search that. Like, I'm actually gonna Google it just to see what it comes up with. Nothing except pictures of AI pictures of Trump as shit. Okay. Trump trips. Let me find it. Here. This is the one. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. Hold on. Okay. So they get J.D. Vance. I'm going to turn the volume way down because it's not really relevant. They get J.D. Vance out. The goal is to just get him out of the line of fire. They don't even care about him, like, surviving or whatever. They just need to get him away from the president. Because if the president dies, he needs to step in, right? And Trump is just sitting there, completely clueless. And I was like, oh, shit, I got to get up. And now he eats shit. Now he falls forward onto the ground. And they're like, okay, I think maybe the best idea, instead of trying to carry him, is to just fall on top of him. And then they're like, all right, let's carry the motherfucker out of here. Oh, my God. He ate shit when trying to escape the assassination attempt. All right. That's sad. That's so sad. I'm so sorry for Donald Trump. You got to feel for him, huh? Jeez. That's rough.
The question everyone is asking now, how did they know? Was shots fired just political slang?
Yes, it was obviously political slang. Like, fucking come on. He's so full of shit, dude. Like, he does this intentionally. Think about how he's framing this event. He's framing it in such a way that it will hurt Donald Trump. Whatever he can say or do to hurt Donald Trump with this. He's trying to... And, I appreciate it. I don't like Donald Trump at all. I don't want Trump to benefit from this politically in any way. So I'm glad he's doing that. But it's a good object lesson in how he propagandizes, how he lies, how he twists things around and creates narratives. That's how Tucker operates. That's who Tucker is.
A chilling phrase that aged horribly within hours. Americans deserve transparency. If this was a real attack, security failures must be exposed. If it was political theater, that would be one of the biggest manipulations in modern history.
Like, if it's political theater, say it. Don't hedge. He's hedging here because he knows that it would look very bad for him to come out and claim, I think that this was fake. So he's saying it in such a way that it's less, what's the word? Not like less offensive, less on the nose, less obvious what he's trying to communicate. It's a propagandist's method of tackling a subject he doesn't like. And if Tucker is anything, he's an expert propagandist, right?
Until the full truth comes out, millions will keep asking the same question, coincidence or calculated?
Oh, that was the end of it. Until the answers come out, millions will ask the questions. Isn't that interesting how he frames that? He's been turning on Trump for a while, and it's really, really interesting to see, even though it's very clearly propagandistic lies all the way down. It's really useful to kind of understand where the anti-Trump wing of the Republican Party is going, because Tucker is one of the people who forms it. Hold on. Let me just find my timestamps. 50. All right. Tucker. All right. Yeah. Check this one out.
Why can't this president or any president say no to Israel?
I mean, they can in the most technical sense, just they don't tend to, right? That's part of the that's part of the propagandistic framing that Tucker lays down. This is his signature style.
And we have a right to know why. It's not just because we love Israel and it's the only democracy in the Middle East. And if it is, then our leaders are dumber than we thought they were. But it's probably not that. Because they understand perfectly well how bad this is for the U.S. And there are, believe it or not, a lot of people in the White House who care about the United States. People with power in the White House. They're not all, whatever you think they are, zombies doing Bibi's bidding. Some of them can see very clearly where this is heading. It's heading toward a nuclear strike by Israel on Iran. That's
okay. That's like worst case scenario, and I don't actually see that happening, honestly. I think that's very unlikely. I would even go so far as say far-fetched. But, you know, that's part of the propaganda. Frame things in the absolute worst possible way. Things that you don't like or that you don't want or whatever should be framed as maximally bad. And things that you are okay with or whatever should be framed maximally positively. The propagandists' technique.
That's obvious. And that would be a world historic disaster. It's also clearly terrible for the American economy, for the American people, not even to mention the Americans who will die in numbers.
I completely agree. I cannot stand Israel. I don't like what they're doing in Gaza. I just want to make that clear from the outset. But this is definitely propaganda.
If this becomes a land war. So there are people working really hard, really late, trying to fix this, to get a peace, even one that diminishes us, where we have to take some lumps. They are doing that. That's the only reason we got to where we were yesterday. It's because people in the White House, taking no credit for it whatsoever, were working to end this because it's bad. But those people predictably were undercut. Our country was undercut by Israel, and there's apparently nothing we can do about it. So again, why is that?
Dude, this guy fucking hates Jews, honestly. Again, I don't like Israel or what Israel is up to right now. I think it's fucking evil. But Tucker just hates Jews. Seriously. I mean, he had a famous Holocaust denier on his show not too long ago, and I watched the whole thing and debunked it all forever ago. I don't know, it was 6 months ago or something. Tucker basically endorsed the idea that we should have sided with Hitler instead of Stalin in World War II. That with that video that he did a while back. Absolutely wild.
And once this is over, even before it ends, every American has a right to know, why does this tiny country have so much control over our government? Is it consent? It doesn't look like it. Now, Joe Kent said point blank when he resigned. And by the way, the day he resigned, he retained highest level security clearance. They tried to tell you, oh, he was a leaker. He was under investigation. It was a lie. They admitted it was a lie. He wasn't under investigation by the FBI.
I don't think I heard that about him anyway, but okay.
Untrue. And you know it's untrue because he held his security clearance till the day he left the building. So there's no intelligence in the U.S. government that Joe Kent couldn't see. None. He was one of the most informed people in the world, and his conclusion was there's something weird going on here.
He also concluded that that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. I mean, that's ridiculous, please. That's just too far for me. But anyway. The point is that Tucker is fully turning on Trump right now, and it is absolutely glorious to see. I love every second of it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. It's 55. Next one is... Where are my tabs here? Let's see. Oh, yeah, let's hit spirit science. Why not? I've wanted to hit that for a little while now. Spirit science. Here it is. All right. Cool. I don't know if you guys are familiar with spirit science. It's this YouTube channel that is out of their gourds. And they basically like just make things up whole cloth a lot of the time and make wild claims about, you know what? You'll see. You'll see. We're going to watch this video. It's like this new age spiritualist garbage that uses completely fabricated information. It's run by a guy named Jordan Duknix, I think is how it's said, or something to that effect, who is a rapist. We'll get into that a little bit more too. I may be making this intro entirely too long. In editing, we might just cut this down to a very simple kind of synopsis of what we're about to watch. All right, so let's watch this. This is called Space Jews. It's a spirit science video. Spirit science is absolutely insane. It's a YouTube channel that's like a cult, basically. Let's see what they have to say about space Jews. Yeah, that's a good intro. Just cut everything else. This is a program I wrote where I send videos through analysis to see like some of the craziest spots. Look at how filled with insanity this is. Every yellow and purple block here is an insane false statement. All right, let's start at the very beginning. Here we go. Buckle up, people. Actually, we're going to start 2 minutes in because that's where it really gets going. Here. Right. Hold on. Yeah, let's watch this.
The biggest. The field of archaeology recently saw some monumental discoveries that are rocking the foundation of what we think we know about ourselves. Many ancient cities such as Babylon, Erech, and Akkad that were written about in the Bible and other ancient texts were always thought to be myths because no one could prove they existed.
People thought Babylon and Akkad were myths? What?
Then, one of them was found. This led to finding another, and then another. Inside one of these cities, archaeologists found thousands of cylindrical clay tablets hidden deep within the earth under this ancient city. The tablets were completely covered in text, written in cuneiform, and tell an ancient story that spans back over hundreds of thousands of years on this planet, describing the history.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hundreds of thousands of years? No. I don't think that's right. We've only had writing for 6,000 years or 7,000 or somewhere in there. Humans have only existed on planet Earth since 100,000 years ago. For 100,000 years, that's it. I'm a little skeptical. Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Hang on. 1 second. I had this thing pulled up where it basically like tore this specific video apart, and I'm looking for it again. Give me a second here. Where did I put this thing? Okay, here we go. Yeah. The claim, many ancient cities such as Babylon, Erech, and Akkad that were written about in the Bible and other ancient texts were always thought to be myths because no one could prove they existed. Then one of them was found. That's wrong in pretty much every way. Babylon was never lost or thought to be a myth. Its location was known continuously. European travelers visited the ruins for centuries. The site is about 85 kilometers south of Baghdad, and locals always knew what it was. When European archaeologists started excavating in the 19th century, the 1800s, they weren't discovering it. They were systematically digging at a site everyone already knew about. It's like someone discovered Rome. We didn't know about Rome, and someone discovered it. Regarding Akkad, Akkad is one of the major Mesopotamian capitals is the one major Mesopotamian capital that has never been found. We know the Akkadian Empire existed because of extensive textual and archaeological evidence from other sites, but the actual city of Akkad has never been located. Erech, or Uruk, as he said, this has also never been considered mythical. It's one of the most important archaeological sites in Iraq and has been excavated since the late 1800s. So he's just completely full of it. Like, all of that was a lie, every last bit of it, just now.
hidden deep within the earth under this ancient city. The tablets were completely covered in text, written in cuneiform, and tell an ancient story that spans back over hundreds of thousands of years on this planet, describing the history of the earth and the origins of the human race in great detail. Now, the first thing we all want to do is just say that they were making things up. They didn't know the history of Earth, and they were simply creating tales to explain where they came from. However, if this was true, how can we explain how they knew so many things about the universe that would seem impossible to know? Not only did
Well, great. Then we should be able to verify that they did in fact know these things and that they were on the tablets, right? The oldest cuneiform tablets date to 3400 to 3100 BCE, so about 500 or 5000 to 5500 years old. They come from Uruk, as mentioned a minute ago. And they're just administrative records. So that's just completely made up. We don't have these tablets dating back hundreds of thousands of years before writing existed. And none of the tablets that we have from that place date back to or have stories from 100,000 years ago. That's completely made up. Once again, this is all completely made up.
the Dogons know all about the distant planets in the solar system, but so did the Sumerians. They described them all in great detail in these Sumerian records. They also knew about the precession of the equinox. That's a tough one for a historian to understand, because it takes over 2,000 years of continuous observation to actually learn that the Earth has a wobble. The Sumerians had this information from day one of their civilization. A man named Zachariah Sitchin
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to fact check that one. Also, just a quick note on the other thing. What Jordan is doing is conflating two completely different things: the age of the tablets, physical objects, with the time span of the stories written on them, creation myths that describe events supposedly going back to the beginning of time. This is apparently, hang on. There is something called the Sumerian King List, which is apparently a real document. Lists kings with reign lengths of tens of thousands of years, like 28,800 years for a single king. Mainstream Sumeriologists understand that this is mythological or symbolic, similar to the 900-year lifespans in Genesis. Sitchin took those numbers literally and said they're recording real history spanning hundreds of thousands of years. And Jordan from Spirit Science is repeating that garbage. Now, regarding the Sumerians knowing about the Earth's wobble from day one, the precision of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, it takes about 25,000 years to complete a full cycle, was formally described by Hipparchus, a Greek astronomer, around 127 BCE. He's generally credited as the discoverer in Western astronomy. The question of whether earlier civilizations knew about it is a real debate, I guess. And it's a lot more nuanced than Jordan presents here, obviously. He said that they knew about it from day one. That's just not true.
Spent a long time transcribing these texts and have put them all together in his books, but many others have also done the same, and the interpretations are always very similar. Not only that, but Thoth has also shared information about this with us, and his account matches the Sumerian records. Adamus and other channelings discuss it as well. If you see all of these records and sources, there is a huge connection between the stories. Now, this story spans back hundreds of thousands of years into our past.
So I'm just trying to understand the story. He's saying archaeologists found a 100,000-year-old document from ancient Babylon, and it tells the origin of Earth, basically. That's complete nonsense, obviously. But did you catch what he said about Thoth there just now? It's supposed to be some bird figure, I believe. It says the actual Thoth is one of the major deities in the ancient Egyptian pantheon. He's the god of writing, wisdom, knowledge, magic, and the moon. He's typically depicted as the man with the head of an ibis, or sometimes as a baboon. In Egyptian mythology, he served as the scribe of the gods, the inventor of hieroglyphics, and played a crucial role in the judgment of the dead. Now, regarding what's happening here, hang on, I'm trying to understand. There's a guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek who Spirit Science talks about all the time. He's some ridiculous spiritual leader kind of person, you know. Melchizedek claims that Thoth is not a mythological figure, but a literal immortal being, an ascended master who was the priest king of Atlantis for thousands of years. According to Melchizedek, Thoth achieved immortality through a tantric interdimensional sex meditation. But the Great Pyramid built the Great Pyramid through thought manifestation, created all the sacred sites on Earth as nodes on the consciousness grid, wrote the Emerald Tablets, and then physically lived on Earth continuously until 15 years ago, relative to when Melchizedek was telling the story in the 1990s, at which point Thoth transferred all of his knowledge about sacred geometry to Melchizedek personally. So all this shit that Jordan of Spirit Science is laying down here about Thoth is coming from Melchizedek. He's buying the ridiculous BS claim that this Melchizedek scumbag laid down about being visited by birdmen who manifested pyramids. I know it's a lot, but we have to step through every second of this.
And have put them all together in his books. But many others have also done the same, and the interpretations are always very similar. Not only that, but Thoth has also shared information about this with us, and his account matches the Sumerian records. Adamus and other channelings discuss it as well. If you see all of these records and sources, there is a huge connection between the stories. Now, this story spans back hundreds of thousands of years into our past. It talks about Tiamat and Nibiru, the Nephilim, seeding the human race, Adam and Eve, and the children of Lemuria. This portion of the story is really interesting, but not the most crucial to know. We're not going to be covering this at this time. We are, however, going to be picking up the story at the end of Lemuria, and discussing the events of Atlantis up to present day. What I'm going to tell you is a mix of what these records say, along with what Thoth has told us for some finer details.
What Thoth has told us, again, from Melchizedek. How absolutely batshit insane is this?
Please have your own experience while watching this. I'm not going to tell you that this is fact.
I don't want to have my own experience. I want to have your experience. Give it to me, or else.
I am simply saying, decide for yourself. Tom, you seem very go.
Thank you for blowing my fucking eardrums out. I really appreciate that.
There was a time, long ago, when humans existed at a very high level of consciousness. We were interdimensional and were very psychic. We communicated through thought and emotion, much like how animals do rather than speaking or writing, which would seem very primitive.
Wait. I'm sorry. Animals communicate psychically? Interesting. Okay.
We lived primarily on a large string of islands called Lemuria, but there was a consciousness shift. We moved up in consciousness, and the islands of Lemuria sank beneath the oceans. At the time of this shift, a new continent rose out of the waters. We called it Atlantis. Back in the early 1900s, the spiritual path of the United States was similar to what's happening today. People began to learn about meditation and study ancient lands like Atlantis and Lemuria. We actually found quite a bit of evidence that Lemuria existed.
Okay, he's about to go through this whole thing, and I'm going to let him go through it. This might actually be where I start the video, because just a side note, because the intro was a lot and I didn't get a chance to watch much of it. I was talking for most of it, so I don't know. Editorial judgment. Should we keep everything before this point? Use your best judgment while editing. Anyway. He's about to tell us about Lemuria and Atlantis, as though they were real locations. Literally all of this is made up.
And it had to do with coral. See, the ocean floor does rise and fall. Coral can exist up to 150 feet under the surface of the water. In 1910, the surface of the ocean was probably higher because they were able to see coral rings heading away from Easter Islands for a great distance. These rings were estimated to be found at 1,800 feet, which means that for them to have existed, they would have had to be much higher and sunk slowly. Probably more important, they also found the exact same fauna and flora from the Hawaiian Islands all the way to the Easter Islands. This is a great distance, but if you look at a map, you'll see a long string. That string, according to Thoth, used to run along the western shores of Lemuria. It is only on these islands that have the same flora and fauna. Same trees, bugs, bacteria, everything. Science can only explain this if there were closer land bridges between these islands at one point.
Science can only explain it, huh? Okay. All of this is completely made up, basically. I can't help but notice that he said that we can prove that the coral was higher because it's lower in the ocean or whatever. I can't help but notice that he's not saying we know that the water was lower, that the water receded or whatever, or the water rose. He's saying the land literally went up and down, not that the water went up and down. He says the land went up and down. Okay. The coral part, the 150-foot depth limit for living reef building coral is roughly correct. That's true. The specific claim about coral rings at 1,800 feet heading away from Easter Islands in 1910, that's nonsense. That was just completely made up. Entirely fabricated. The flora and fauna part, this is apparently a real observation, but it's being misrepresented here. There are similarities in plant and animal species across Polynesian islands from Hawaii to Easter Island, but the mainstream explanation isn't land bridges, and it isn't a sunken continent, which is the implication here. It's a combination of things. Bird dispersal, seeds carried in feathers and digestive tracts, ocean currents carrying plant matter, wind dispersal, and more importantly, human migration. This is not mysterious.
Although we were studying this at that time, World War I began soon after, and we lost interest in spirituality and the ancient lands for a very long time. After the sinking of Lemuria and the rising of Atlantis, at first the human race became scattered. We moved to various islands and continents all over the world because we didn't have a home. Yet. We didn't know where to go. At that time, there were about 1,000 humans at a very high consciousness, more than all of the rest. They were called the Nakals. Today, we know them as Ascended Masters. The Nakals began preparing Atlantis to be our new home. They projected their energies across the surface of the continent in the form of the Tree of Life, not with 10 circles, but with 12, an extra on top on the island of Udall, and an extra on the bottom in the water. There were 10 components on the mainland, and even though it extended over hundreds of miles on the surface, it was projected to the accuracy of a single atom. We chose to move to Atlantis because of the Kundalini.
Okay, so the Nakals or Nichols or whatever, he's referring to them as Ascended Masters. He says they set up the Tree of Life energy pattern on Atlantis, achieved immortality through tantric interdimensional sex meditations again, and guided humanity through various catastrophes. The actual word is Nakal, N-A-A-C-A-L, and it comes from 19th century pseudo-archaeologist named Augustus Le Plongeon, I think, who used it in 1896 to describe a priestly class of Mayan missionaries. He derived it from a Maya word meaning to be elevated or exalted. Then a British writer named James Churchward grabbed the term in 1926 and completely reinvented it. Story was that while serving in India, a Hindu priest showed him secret clay tablets written in a dead language called Nakal. So this is all basically tracing back to like 100 years ago, not even that old. And it's completely fabricated, all of it, from the ground up. And now Jordan is commandeering this garbage. So Le Plongeon, 1896, invents the term for Mayan priests, and it gets to Churchward, 1926, repurposes it for the rulers of a lost continent based on tablets nobody ever saw. And then to Drunvalo Melchizedek, 1990s, he absorbs the concept into his own mythology, blending it with Thoth, sacred geometry, and his claim of being a walk-in spirit occupying someone else's body. And then Jordan Dukeniks or whatever in 2012 retells the whole thing in cartoon form. That is the process. That is what happened here. Insane. Get help.
Projected to the accuracy of a single
we haven't even gotten to the space Jews yet.
atom. We chose to move to Atlantis because of the Kundalini. In humans, the Kundalini is often referred to as the energy serpent that runs up and down your spine. When activated, it provides an immense amount of energy through all of the chakras. The Earth itself also has a Kundalini because the Earth is alive, like an organism, running from the center of the planet to a specific place on the surface. Wherever the Kundalini resides, the people there become the spiritual leaders of the world. The Earth chose Atlantis to be the new energetic center of the planet. After Atlantis, the Kundalini moved to the mountains of Tibet, which is why the Buddhists were the leaders in pure spirituality for the last 13,000 years. It was a very pure place. It moved again within the last 10 years, but that's a story for another time.
The land physically moved to a different location? Is that what you're saying? Regarding the Kundalini, what he just said, Kundalini is a concept from Hindu Tantra and yoga traditions, primarily from the Shaiva and Shakta schools. The word comes from Sanskrit. Kundal means coiled, and it refers to a form of primal spiritual energy believed to be coiled at the base of the spine, often symbolized as a sleeping serpent. The concept appears in texts going back to roughly the 7th to 10th centuries CE, though some scholars trace the related ideas further back. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. This is so confusing. This is such a train wreck of a mess. All of this is insane. None of it is based in reality. It's almost exclusively built on the absurd claims of some old douchebag named Drunvalo Melchizedek from the 90s, who claimed to have been visited by an ancient Egyptian god, and this poor dumb fool fell for it. Or did he? Or did he? I don't know. Maybe he's completely full of shit. Maybe he lied. Maybe he doesn't believe any of this. Jordan, I mean. Maybe he's suckering people into believing this. But what purpose would there be to that? I don't know. I'm just so, it's so hard to know what this dude believes, really believes, and what's complete nonsense. I mean, it's all nonsense, but what he doesn't even take seriously, I guess.
If you want to read more, check out the book The Serpent of Light by Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Oh boy, I should read that, in all seriousness. Maybe on my stream one of these days. I wonder how long it is.
Suddenly, in a single day...
I'm sorry, let me look that up one more time. Oh.
Check out the book The
Serpent of Light? Melchizedek. Holy shit, dude. This book it's gigantic. Oh my God. So many purchases and comments and ratings. And God, dude, it's got 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's 8.5 hours to listen on Audible. I don't know how many pages. It's not saying. 8.5 fucking hours, dude. It's 300 pages. That's how long my new book is. God's People, Christian Nationalism in the Reich Churches. Keep a lookout for it.
Serpent of Light by Drunvalo Melchizedek. Suddenly, in a single day, the Nicals breathed life into the Tree of Life on the surface of Atlantis. This created vortexes of energy rotating out of each and every circle. Once the vortexes were established, the children of Lemuria began to be called forth. Millions upon millions of Lemurians who had settled all across the planet began to be pulled toward Atlantis. A great migration began. However, the Lemurian body of consciousness had only reached the age of 12 as a planetary consciousness. Because we were right-brained, we were a female species.
Holy shit, there's so much here. Wait, so the Lemurians were cognitively 12 years old, even though they were actually thousands of years old? Is that what he's saying? They were only 12? And we were right-brained and feminine? Okay.
Only reached the age of 12 as a planetary consciousness. Because we were right-brained, we were a female species. like a 12-year-old girl. And some of our centers weren't working yet. They had worked with these
Our centers?
energies, but only mastered 8 of the 10. Each migrating Lemurian was attracted to one of these 8 centers on Atlantis, depending on the nature of the individual. There, they settled and began to build cities. That left 2 vortexes with nobody using them. Not a single person.
Like, what the fuck is a vortex in this situation? Hang on, let me see if I can find out. There's a website here that kind of broke all of this down. So, the vortex, it's like a spiritual energy hotspot, a point on the Earth's surface where interdimensional energy spirals upward or downward, attracting life and consciousness toward it. It's like a magnet for souls. Okay, sweet. Soul magnet. Love it.
Person. These 2 vortexes were pulling life toward them, and in life, you can't have an empty place. Life will find a way to fill it. Similar to if you were driving along a freeway, following another car, and you drop too far behind, someone will fill the place. That's exactly what happened on Atlantis. Though the Lemurians had only filled 8 of the vortex areas, Mayan records state clearly that there were 10 cities in Atlantis when it fell. You can see these records in the Troano document, which is now located in the British Museum. This document is estimated to be 3,500 years old, and it describes in detail the sinking of Atlantis. To fill these 2...
Okay, no, Atlantis is fake. I'm very confident. Let me just look this up. No, this is fake. That we don't have Mayan records talking about Atlantis in British museums or whatever. That's entirely fabricated. Notice he didn't give us any source to check. He didn't tell us the name of the tablets or whatever, or the tablet number. I think they're cataloged by number. I know that because I looked up some tablets, some cuneiform tablets that are relevant to Jehovah's Witness theology a while back. Anyway, yeah, this is completely made up, like entirely made up. Usually there's some grain of truth to this shit. Or like they will remove the shit that can be easily fact-checked and disproven. But no, they chose not to do that here. Okay. The Troano Codex is real. It's one of only 4 surviving pre-Columbian Maya codices. The vast majority were burned by Spanish priests during the conquest, particularly by Bishop Diego de Landa in 1562. What a sack of shit that dude is. The Troano Codex is actually now part of the Madrid Codex, also called the Cortesanius something, which is housed at some big, long Spanish name. So I think that's the codex he's referring to. He got the location wrong, but it's not 3,500 years old. The Madrid Codex dates to roughly the 13th to 15th century CE, so about 500 years old, not 3,500. It's a late post-classic Maya document. It does not describe the sinking of Atlantis. The Madrid Codex contains almanacs, divination tables, astronomical information, and ritual instructions related to activities like hunting, beekeeping, agriculture, and rain ceremonies. It's a practical, religious, and agricultural reference document. There's nothing in it about Atlantis, 10 cities, or sinking continents. Completely made up. But you know where this comes from? Our old friend Le Plognon, or whatever the fuck his name is, or however it's pronounced. L-E space P-L-E-O-N. I'm sorry. P-L-O-N-G-E-O-N. Plognon, I think. Le Plognon. The same 19th century archaeologist who invented the term Nakal. Le Plognon and another figure, Brasseur de Bourbourg, attempted to translate the Troano Codex in the 1860s. Bourbourg was actually the one who rediscovered the codex and attempted to use Diego de Landa's flawed alphabet to decode Maya hieroglyphics. I gotta know, how the fuck did they come up with all of this? Hang on. This is wild. Like, this whole belief system is insane.
2 empty vortexes, according to Thoth, 2 extraterrestrial races stepped in. Not one, but 2 completely different races. The The first race were the Hebrews, coming from our future.
Oh boy, we're getting to the space Jews. Buckle up.
Thoth says that they came from off-planet, but we don't know where exactly. The Hebrews were kind of like a kid who went through 5th grade and didn't make it, so they had to do that grade over again. They
Space Jews. Okay, so not only are Jews from another planet, but they're also really stupid, according to this dude, right? They're not intelligent enough to pass the grade. Like the normal kids. They have to go back through and repeat a grade. Awesome.
learned all the math, the left brain stuff, but they didn't get the right brain aspect of evolving consciousness, the doing. They didn't graduate to the next level of evolution, so they had to do it again. They knew a lot of things that we didn't know yet and brought many concepts and ideas to us that we weren't aware of yet.
So they weren't completely inferior in Jordan's mind. They were just a little inferior, you see. Okay. Jesus Christ.
Now, if this is true, this would explain quite a few things about the Hebrew people in general. They seem to have many sacred geometries hidden within their culture. It also
they do?
puts perspective on the story of Exodus. Perhaps Moses incarnated into that lifetime to free the Hebrews because they were not direct descendants of humans and were being treated unfairly.
Bro, what? You're telling me you think that Jews are genuinely from space? That they're they're aliens? You think that Jews are aliens? What the fuck?
Or could it be that Moses was visited by an ascended master of the Hebrews who guided him to free their people? Given what we know about dimensions and consciousness, it definitely puts a fresh perspective on old stories that didn't make much sense.
What we know, quote unquote, definitely puts a fresh perspective on it. Yeah, absolutely. Quick editing note one more time. Please cut out anything irrelevant that doesn't really fit, that's boring, that, you know, is unnecessary or whatever. Like, if I did 10 minutes of explaining and it's not really that necessary, then just remove it. Just an editing note there. All right, let's continue. Like, we could feasibly jump straight to the Space Jews section, depending on how boring it is or whatever. I don't know. I figure we'll figure it out when we get there.
We could talk about this more, but let's continue for now. There were no problems caused by the Hebrews coming to Atlantis. They actually benefited our evolution. The other race that stepped in caused big problems. These beings came from the nearby planet of Mars. See, according to Thoth, Mars looked very much like Earth a little less than 1 million years ago. It was beautiful. It had oceans and water and trees that were...
Okay, well, I completely disagree, good sir. According to Thoth, Mars had trees. How long? 1 million years ago? No, it didn't. Mars did not have trees 1 million years ago. Get fucking help, brother. Please, I'm begging you.
Were just fantastic. But something happened to them, and it has to do with something called the Lucifer experiment. From the very beginning of creation, everything is simply an experiment. Creation itself was just consciousness creating and inhabiting itself in that creation. There is no divine plan. Spirit can do whatever it wants. Having said that,
I'm okay.
If Spirit decides to cut itself off from the rest of consciousness and create a separate reality on its own, it can do that too. This is called the Lucifer experiment. Because Spirit is God, it can do this. There is nothing wrong with that. We've kind of...
Spirit is God now. Okay.
been led to believe that Lucifer is evil and the devil. This just isn't true. Lucifer is just another means of perceiving the reality. It is not a unity perception of oneness, but rather a duality perception of two-ness.
Okay, this means nothing to me. Am I too stupid to understand? Is that the problem? I understand what all of these words mean individually, but I feel like they're kind of being smashed together completely meaninglessly. Like, consciousness is God and the Lucifer experiment and disconnect. What would it mean for consciousness to disconnect from reality? What would that mean? Is consciousness not just the perception of reality? How could one possibly disconnect consciousness from reality? It feels like that is a nonsensical term at its face, or a nonsensical concept. But okay, continue, Jordan. Continue telling me about this, please.
That Lucifer is evil and the devil. This just isn't true. Lucifer is just another means of perceiving the reality. It is not a unity perception of oneness, but rather a duality perception of two-ness.
Lucifer is another way of interpreting reality? What the fuck could that possibly mean? Really, I mean, think about what he just said. What could that possibly mean?
There's a flower of life pattern for Lucifer as well, but that's a big topic for another time. Anytime the Lucifer experiment has been attempted in the universe, it always ends in failure. The species will cut itself off from love and will become incredibly male, left-brained. What always ends up happening is that everyone becomes very greedy, there is no compassion for one another, and everyone ends up fighting until they end up killing themselves. More than 1 million years ago, the beings on Mars joined the Lucifer experiment, and it failed dramatically. Basically, they cut themselves off from the unity of the universe and created a separate reality. When the Martians severed the love bond, they became pure male, logical beings with no emotions. What happened on Mars was that they ended up...
Okay, look, this bothers me. All right, the idea that men are logical beings and women are emotional beings. Like, is anger not an emotion? Do you not consider anger an emotion? Men are best known, if anything, for anger. I argue men are more emotional than women because of all the testosterone and everything. It's constant fucking anger from men. I know. Take my word for this. It's constant nonstop anger. What is he talking about here?
Fighting. Mars became a battleground. Eventually, it became clear that Mars was not going to survive. They blew their atmosphere away and destroyed the surface of the planet.
See, this is what I'm talking about. He said they were right-brained like men or whatever, and that meant pure logic. Is war logical? Because that's what happened when all men took over. Is war logical? Or is that emotion-driven? Did people get their feelings hurt, and that's why they ended up going to war? Is that what happened? It's pretty much what happens every single time there is a war. Someone got their feelings hurt.
Nova recently did an episode on planetary magnetics, and they found some interesting things about Mars. The planet didn't have a magnetic system, however the surface was magnetized, implying that at one point it did, but that something happened. Now, we've been discussing the star tetrahedron before, and now I want to give you a brief understanding of the Merkaba. The Merkaba was known in ancient times as the Chariot of Ascension. It is the star tetrahedral energy field around the body. All around the
Holy Christ on a cracker, bro, these words.
World, there are references to this in ancient texts. When activated to its full potential, the Merkaba, which is both a tool and part of your being, can be used to do the impossible, included but not limited to changing dimensions and traveling through the universe. Before Mars was destroyed, they built huge tetrahedral pyramids. They built 3, 4, and 5-sided pyramids.
They're literally like rock formations, and he's claiming that these are designed by Martians. What the fuck is wrong with you? When did this video come out, I wonder? Hold on, let's see if I can find when this video came out. No, 1 second. Spirit, Science, History of Humanity. I think that's the name of it. Yes.
Single person.
Yes, this came out 14 years ago. It's 5 million fucking views, dude. 5 million views. Jesus Christ.
Eventually building a complex that was able to build a synthetic Merkaba. After 1 million years or so, it's been eroded, but the proof is there. Now, because the Martians were severed from the Unity consciousness, they couldn't create a living Merkaba. They simply used it as a tool. They created a synthetic Merkaba to travel in time and find a new home. A small group of Martians tried to get away from Mars before it was destroyed, and that place they found was Earth.
Okay, so basically none of this is original to Jordan, by the way. I just pulled this up to find out where all this shit came from. It's essentially an animated retelling of Drunvalo Melchizedek's The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, volumes 1 and 2, published in 1999 and 2000. Wow, okay. By the way, Zolfner, I'm going to buy a buttload of your books and use them as toilet paper because you never read the book I sent you. I appreciate that. I got the book, actually. And you're right, I didn't read the whole thing. I did glance at it, and I actually just saw it the other day. I still have it. And I thought about that. I was like, damn, here's the book. I hope you do buy it. I'm really excited about my new book. I learned some things about writing and the English language to try to make this one more cohesive, logical, and structured than my others. I think that this book is significantly better structured. The rule of threes and circling back around to theses and having an overarching thesis for a book and things like that. Yeah. This one is much better structured. And I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. In fact, by the end of tonight, I might actually just read the introduction to you. It's not complete. Well, it is complete, but I'm doing line editing now on it. I could get a publisher, but I think I'm going to self-publish. I think that's really the better choice for me. I think I can, I don't know. I think it would take a lot of time and effort to get a publisher, and I probably wouldn't get as much out of it when I can publish it myself because I have, a platform to do it with. I don't know. I might communicate with a couple of publishers when the time comes. Anyway, all right, let's continue with this. I'll buy it just because I like you, but audio, please. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm definitely all about audio form. Audio form will release the same day as written form. In fact, my written books get almost no purchases. Just about all of the purchases are from Audible, interestingly. It makes up like 2/3 or more of the book purchases. But anyway, let's continue. Whoop. Hold on, I'm just looking through. Yeah, okay. Merkaba, by the way, the word comes from Hebrew. It literally means chariot. It refers specifically to the throne chariot of God, described in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1. Ezekiel describes a vision of 4 living creatures with 4 faces each: human, lion, ox, eagle, wheels within wheels covered in eyes, and a throne of sapphire above them with a figure of radiant light sitting on it. It's one of the most intense and strange passages in the Hebrew Bible, apparently. What Melchizedek did with it, he took the word Merkaba, stripped it of its Jewish theological context, and redefined it as an electromagnetic energy field made of counter-rotating star tetrahedrons, 3-dimensional Star of David shapes that surrounds every human body. He spells it Merkaba as opposed to the original, which is spelled with an H on the end, at least. There's one difference. And it claims it breaks down into 3 Egyptian words: Mer, counter-rotating fields of light; Ka, spirit; and Ba, body or reality. So he took a Hebrew word, gave it a fake Egyptian etymology, and turned it into a geometric energy tool. That's what he's talking about here.
About 65,000 years in our past, they saw this little vortex sitting there just pulling in life with no one in it. They didn't ask permission. Being part of the Lucifer experiment, they just said, all right, let's do it. And they stepped onto that vortex, and in doing so, they joined and changed our evolutionary path. Thoth's father, Thome, was one of the Nacals who set up Atlantis on the island of Udal. That island, the top of the Tree of Life, was the brain of Atlantis, and on it was a small city called Poseidon. This city is what Plato was discussing when he said that Poseidon bore 10 children, the 10 circles on the Tree of Life. Poseidon was made of 3 rings painted in black, red, and white stones, and it was the symbol for Atlantis. The inner circle represented the Nacals. The middle circle were the priesthood.
Like, seriously, this feels like a fever dream. It feels like he's describing, like, an acid trip he had. Just complete nonsensical garbage. I bet Lord Falcones would have something to say about this. Falcones believed in this shit, I think, for a while there. before exiting. I wonder if he's here.
Called the Maya, and the outer circle represented the regular people of Atlantis. We'll come back to this down the road. There were only a few thousand Martians who came to Earth through the synthetic Merkaba. The first thing they did when they arrived in Atlantis was try to take over the continent. They tried to declare war and invade. However, they were vulnerable due to their small numbers, compared to the millions of Atlanteans, and we finally subdued them. We were able to...
Wait, we? Okay, so Martians came here to try to take over everything violently, but we were children of the light or some shit, and we subdued the Martians. Okay, go on. Oh, Falconis is here. Yes, unfortunately. I've been here. Okay. Fucking wild, dude. I've seen this unfortunate movie already twice now, and I've auto-tuned it out. Okay. I'm so goddamn confused by all this shit.
Stop them from conquering us, but we could not send them back. When this happened on our evolutionary path, we now had the planetary consciousness of a 14-year-old girl. The
Planetary consciousness. I still don't know what that means, or why you think that it was a 14-year-old girl instead of, 18-year-old girl or 23-year-old girl or 67-year-old man. I don't understand what the logic is here at all.
Martians were an incredibly male species and also very old. So what you had was a 14-year-old girl being taken over by a 60 or 70-year-old man.
What the fuck?
We had no choice in the matter. The Martians just stepped in and said, like it or not, we're here. They didn't care what we thought or felt about it. Really, it was no different from what the settlers of North America did to the Native Americans. Once the initial conflict was over, it was agreed that the Martians would try and understand this female thing they lacked. This emotional feeling, which they had none of at all. Things more or less settled for a while.
They had no emotion, but they were violent and warlike and came over here and conquered shit. You're telling me you can be violent and angry and hateful without emotions? Okay.
But the Martians slowly began to implement their left-brain technologies, which the Atlanteans knew nothing about.
Wait a minute. Wait. Are you saying that Jordan is a QAnoner and or is MAGA? I can't tell what you were saying at first glance. I mean, the creator of spirit science, is he MAGA?
One after the other, the Martians kept putting out these left-brain inventions until the Atlanteans slowly began to see things through their left brain. We slowly began to become a male species. The Martians gained control, bit by bit, until eventually they had all of the power, as was their intention. The animosity between Atlanteans and the Martians never subsided, not even till the end of Atlantis. They hated each other. The Atlanteans were shoved down and treated like inferiors. It was like a marriage that the female component didn't like, but the male component didn't really care if she liked it or not. It remained this way for a very long time, until about 26,000 years ago, when the next phase slowly began. Before we continue, we have to talk about polar shifts. See, in the 1930s, Edgar Cayce was channeling information for a geologist when he stopped and he said,
Bro, who the fuck is Edgar Cayce or Edward Cayce or whatever the fuck? This dude is all fucking over the place. This is so confusing. How the fuck did this get 5 million views? 5 million. That is so many. I don't think I have a single video that has 5 million views on it. I have some with 2 or 3 million. In fact, I have many with, over 1 million. But 5 fucking million views, dude.
There's something you should know. In the near future, the Earth's poles are going to shift. Cayce was a brilliant man with a very strong connection to higher dimensions, where he communicated with other beings for the human race. Ultimately, it was because of his channelings that the belief system called New Age was created. This is again just putting what he was doing into boxes of understanding, because no one else understood what he was doing at that time.
Yeah, I don't think anybody understands what the fuck is happening right now.
Nevertheless, when Cayce talked, people listened. Geologists began exploring the possibility of a polar shift, and they found something remarkable. A string of major pieces of evidence came forth and lent tremendous weight to what Cayce was saying, and they have now changed the world's view on the subject. Scientists believed that if there was going to be a physical pole shift, there would also be a change in the magnetic poles. Through studying lava beds, geologists were able to see where the planetary magnetics were when the lava beds hardened at certain depths.
What the fuck is a lava bed? A lava bed. That's what he's saying, right? Lava bed? Is he talking about lava beds? We know how long ago poles shifted. This did happen, yes. There have been pole shifts. Absolutely.
They found that the earlier magnetic poles were not where they were now, but in Hawaii. The last shift that took place was 13,000 years ago, and we will get there in the story soon. They did another test and found that it had shifted again 26,000 years ago as well. Scientists also learned that polar shifts happen very quickly. In a single day, the magnetics would do a complete flip, or turn 90 degrees. There's that number again. And within 24
90 is a special number, apparently. Okay.
hours, the sun would be rising differently than it did the previous day. This shift has happened hundreds of times over the last 100 million years on Earth, but it's speeding up now and happening faster and faster. Now only 13,000 years between each shift. A whole new viewpoint is beginning to be understood. From space, would this not appear as a pulse? Now, there's a lot more to talk.
No, it wouldn't appear as a pulse, but okay. I don't like... Things pulse all the time. There are neutron stars out there that are sending out like consistent radio waves, and you can turn on a radio and point it in that direction and you can hear wah, 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 wah. I mean, things sound like pulses because, you know, pulses are a very common sound. Doesn't mean that it literally is a pulse. What the fuck is wrong with this dude?
Talk about with polar shifts, but I'm going to give you the basics. A scientist named Charles Hapgood was studying this at great detail because the leading theory behind what caused polar shifts was still underdeveloped at the time. He came up with a theory that demonstrated to be possible through various experiments. Through these experiments, they learned that the surface of the Earth, the crust, could slip over the main mass of the Earth, which continues its rotation as if nothing happened. The crust would rotate and spin out of control until eventually it settles again in a new location aligned with the new magnetics. During this time, there are massive earthquakes and tsunamis and devastations that rock the world. Doesn't that sound a bit like the destruction described in the Book of Revelations? Now, I don't want to...
I think it's the Book of Revelation. I could be wrong there. But either way, why is he tying this back to the Bible? Is there an actual through line from this insane garbage to the Bible, or is this just like completely made up? Miki, what are you doing? Get out of there. Get. Hey, what are you eating? She's eating something. What are you eating? Miki. I'm worried. There was nothing over here to eat. I'm hoping it was a bug of some sort. Okay.
freak anyone out. Besides Edgar Casey's account, many other ancient prophecies, including Nostradamus and Mayan prophecies, have talked about polar shifts in one way or another. And modern science is becoming increasingly aware that there is going to be a polar shift in our near future, which is lining up with our consciousness shift, though they don't take that aspect into account. It's funny actually, a while back, Nova did 2 reports on polar shifts, and both times NASA shut them down. Then recently...
NASA shut down some company or some Nova or something? Okay. The geomagnetic reversal, that is real. Earth's magnetic poles do flip. We know that because we've looked at like seabeds and stuff like that. That's not surprising. That doesn't mean the Earth is going to literally flip over on its side. That just means magnetic poles are going to flip. That's the extent of it. I'm just looking for the... I'm just looking for more info on this. Yeah, Nova is a public television program with a publicly available archive. Okay, so it was a TV show. The episode Jordan is referencing here, I believe, is Magnetic Storm, which aired on PBS Nova in November 2003. It's a full hour-long documentary about Earth's magnetic fields, geomagnetic reversals, the weakening fields, and what the future reversal might look like. It's freely available. I don't know what he's talking about when he says NASA shut them down. What? The implication here is censorship. I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense at all. NASA doesn't have authority over PBS programming. Nova is produced by WGBH Boston for PBS. How could NASA possibly shut down a PBS TV show? What?
Nova released a new video called Earth's Magnetic Storm. That video shows all of the evidence for pole shifts without actually using the words pole shift. It's almost as if a specific company doesn't want us knowing about this and the evidence that's been brought forth. Polar shifts are directly related to the magnetics of the planet as well. Planetary magnetics are supposed to look like this, but the reality is much different. Our magnetics have been weakening over the last 500 years or so, and today they look a little more like this. It was the magnetics becoming more and more warped that's causing many of the problems we've seen in the last 20 years.
No. The magnetic shift happens over a long period of time. It may be causing some problems, I'm not even sure, but it's not like this dire issue that we have to solve. This is just kind of how things work. Our pole shifts, regularly on this planet. That's just what it is.
Birds follow the magnetics of the planet to migrate, and they've been ending up in places they shouldn't be. Whales were continually beaching themselves in the 90s because they followed these magnetics, which led them to land where there should have been water.
Okay, I believe that all of this is false. Birds use magnetism to help them, to guide them to some degree. It doesn't mean that they would end up like on the wrong side of the planet or whatever. That's just nonsense. It's one of the things that they use, as far as I understand it.
As for humans, you know how on the night of the full moon there are more rapes, murders, and violent crimes than any other night of the lunar cycle?
I believe that's false, but I've heard that before. But let me just find the answer to this real fast. Hold on. Yeah, no, this is false. One of the most studied folk beliefs in behavioral science, and it's just made up. It's just completely false. Please try to remember he talks out of his ass. Yeah, most of the stuff he's saying here is completely made up.
Well, the moon affects the magnetics of the Earth, slightly. But the magnetics are so warped right now, it's affecting how we think and act as a planet.
Wait, So, are you saying that the magnets in my hard drive, which is next to me, which is significantly stronger let me rephrase, which is affecting me to a significantly more intense degree than the Earth's magnetic field, you're saying that by sitting next to my hard drive with a magnet in it, it's going to completely fuck my head up. Is that what you're saying? Is that the claim? It's bad for me to be near magnets long term? Fucking please.
Our collapse of social structure is related to the geomagnetics of the Earth. Or perhaps it's the other way around. There's one other thing that we need to discuss about polar shifts. They always line up with a consciousness shift. They are interrelated. Thoth lived on Atlantis for a very long time, and he told us that he saw the Earth shift 5 times, watching the sun rise in the east, and then the west, then the east, then the west. This is how to explain why during a consciousness shift at the end of Lemuria, it sank beneath the oceans and Atlantis rose. If the crust was spinning randomly around the planet, many geological events such as continents rising and falling would take place. Now that we have an understanding of polar shifts, we can continue with this drama on Atlantis.
We have an understanding of polar shifts, okay. This video is so all over the fucking place. How does this have 5.3 million views? I do not understand.
26,000 years ago, we were exactly where we were today on the precession of the equinox. We had gone through our falling asleep phase, and we were about to begin waking up. It was at this point that there was a small consciousness shift. We actually went down in consciousness, not up. A piece of Atlantis about the size of Rhode Island sank into the ocean. This caused a tremendous amount of fear within the Atlanteans, because they thought they were going to lose the whole continent, like what happened with Lemuria. Because of the consciousness shift, one of the bigger things they lost was their connection to the future. They couldn't foresee big events such as the potential sinking of their home. After about 200 years, this fear began to subside. Now, in both the Bible and the Sumerian records, the accounts of Adam, Eve, and all of their children were recorded to have exceptionally long lifespans, like 900 years or so. So 200 years for us back then is like 20 years for us today. We'll explain how we got there soon.
Okay. I think I'm gonna need an explanation on that one.
Things kind of settled for a while, and then between 13,000 and 16,000 years ago, a comet approached the Earth. Because we were living at a high consciousness across all dimensions, the Atlanteans became aware of it before it hit. A great conflict occurred in Atlantis. The Martians, who were in the minority even though they were in control, wanted to blow it out of the sky with their laser technology.
Oh, they have laser technology. I see. The Martians have laser technology. Okay, that explains everything, actually. I didn't get any of this before, but I'm now starting to understand. Laser technology solves all of the confusing contradictions and plot issues of this ridiculous story. Now I know they had laser beams. Jewish space lasers, one might say. It makes a lot more sense. Okay, go on.
However, the Nacals had learned of the comet's true nature, and the Atlanteans protested. They said that the comet was in divine order. They had to allow it to take place naturally. Let it hit the Earth. That's what's supposed to happen. The Martians fought the Atlanteans, but in the end they gave in. The Martians agreed to let it hit the Earth. When the time arrived, it came screaming into the atmosphere, plunging into the Atlantic Ocean just off to the western shores of Atlantis.
And was this the one that killed the dinosaurs, this thing here?
Where Charleston, South Carolina is now. Only that was at the bottom of the ocean at the time.
Wait, why Charleston, South Carolina? Why that location? Why not, like, Big Ugly, West Virginia? Or why not Big Otter, West Virginia? Or one of the other bigs in West Virginia. There are a lot of them, weirdly. Yes, those are real. Even Big Ugly is real. It's a real place in West Virginia. Big Ugly Creek, West Virginia.
The remnants of the comet are now scattered across 4 states, and science has definitely determined that it hit at least 12,000 years ago, if not more.
Okay, let's find out. No need to wonder. Just loaded up our question gun. Let's go answer hunting. He says that South Carolina was underwater 12,000 years ago, right? That's what he said? Magnets, how do they work? And I don't want to talk to a scientist. Y'all motherfuckers lying, getting me pissed, as my good friend the Juggalos would say. Mr. Oh God, what's his name? What the fuck's his name? The two... Oh, Shaggy and Violent J. My two good friends Shaggy and Violent J would say, yes. They don't trust scientists, especially not on magnets. Okay. Carolina Bays. Tens of thousands of shallow oval-shaped depressions scattered across the Atlantic coastal plain from New Jersey to Florida, with the highest concentration in the Carolinas. That's probably what he's referring to. There are just a lot of little impacts there. That's it. But he says the comet hit just off the western shores of Atlantis, near where Charleston, South Carolina is. But that was at the bottom of the ocean at the time, quote unquote. Charleston was not underwater 12,000 years ago. Sea levels were actually lower during the last glacial period because so much water was locked up in the ice sheets. So this is completely made up.
They're still finding pieces today. Although the main portion struck near Charleston, a few fragments actually hit the main body of Atlantis, crashing into an area right where the Martians were living, killing a huge portion of their population. They were pissed. They said...
They were pissed? You're describing a global death that took place. I don't think pissed is the right word. They were pissed.
It's all over. We're divorcing you, and we're gonna do whatever we want. You can do what you want, but we will never listen to you again. We know this whole bit. We've seen it in divorced families throughout the world. And the children? Well, look at our modern world today. We are the children. You can guess what the Martians did next. Their primary interface with the reality was control, and when their anger rose to meet their desire for control, they decided to take over the Earth. They began to once again create a complex like the one they built on Mars long ago to try and create another synthetic Merkaba. If they had succeeded, they would have gained control over everything on the planet. The only thing was, around 50,000 Earth years had passed since they had built a Merkaba, and they didn't quite remember how to do it. But they thought they did.
Well, that's the kind of thing you probably write down somewhere, right?
The Martians built the buildings in Atlantis. They set up the whole experiment. Through the switch.
Wait, did that say flux capacitor? What did that say?
The Martians built the buildings in Atlantis.
Okay, they got a checklist. Set up pyramids, install flux capacitor. Yes, it did say set up flux capacitor. Laugh maniacally and rule the world. And then the last checkbox is just empty. So I guess they have nothing to do after ruling the world. Awesome.
They set up the whole experiment. Through the switch and lost control. The destruction was immense. In this reality, you can hardly make a greater error than to create an out-of-control Merkaba. The experiment began to rip open the dimensional levels, not the higher ones, but the lower ones. To give an analogy, if you took a knife and slit open your stomach, the stomach acids would seep into other parts of the body that it's not supposed to be in. That's like ripping open the dimensions. The Martians almost destroyed the Earth. The environmental disaster we are experiencing today is nothing in comparison, though today's disasters are a direct result of these events. Because of this tear in the dimensional levels, a huge number of lower dimensional spirits and beings were thrown out of their comfort zone and into these higher levels. They were forced into a world that they did not know or understand.
This is fucking insane. Everything about this is insane. What the fuck is happening right now?
To survive, they needed bodies and began automatically entering into the bodies of people. For every human body, there were hundreds of lower dimensional spirits inhabiting them. These beings were earthlings like us, but very different, not coming from this dimension. It was a catastrophe, probably the biggest the Earth has ever seen. The reason the Nakals were special was—
Holy Christ, bro. It just keeps going with insane shit over and over. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. That shit is wild, dude. I don't even know what to make of all of that. That was insane. All right, let me just put a marker down here. 1 second. Where am I exactly on the timeline here? 202. That was longer than I intended. All right. See, what else did I have planned here? Finished this. Beckwith. Let's hit Beckwith real fast. Actually, hold on. Open some of these. Open. That'll work, yeah. And then Haymes. Trump is a baby Christian. That seems interesting. Yeah. Okay, let's hit this real fast. Trump is a baby Christian. I just heard a fascinating argument that propagandists use to protect Donald Trump from accountability. They call him a baby Christian. A baby Christian. Listen to this.
What I really appreciate about President Trump is that he has been, what, in my opinion, the most pro-faith president in my lifetime.
Correct.
And here's what I appreciate is every time I'm around him, he's like, we need more faith in America. And I know so many people are—
Totally. I bet. Yes. Donald Trump is always talking about Jesus and faith and needing more faith in America and shit like that, right? I mean, they're not even making their garbage believable anymore.
Caught up in like, well, he says this and he does this. I'm like, okay, well, let's say he is a baby Christian for a second, okay? How come you have so much grace with other baby Christians and you don't have it with him?
Well, because he's not a baby Christian. Baby Christian means he's very young in his faith journey, but he's a believer and he's coming along and trying to figure out how it works and stuff like that. And he's relying on people around him who are also Christians to help set him straight on things he gets wrong. That's not what's happening here. He's not even a Christian to begin with, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe. He couldn't even name a book, a favorite book of the Bible, let alone a favorite verse. He couldn't even name a favorite testament, New Testament or Old Testament. How can you call him a baby Christian when he's not even trying to pretend to be a Christian?
Why are you fine with Justin Bieber's and all these other celebrities and all these other people getting saved and they're like, hey, they're just learning and everybody else has a learning curve?
I don't have a problem with people doing that. I have a problem with you claiming that Trump is trying to be saved or whatever, that he is saved. I don't believe that for a fucking second. I think Trump believes in one thing, himself. And to claim he's a baby Christian like that's like borderline offensive to Christians. I'll be offended on your behalf, Christians, for this shithead.
But he doesn't have a learning curve. I mean, it's amazing how fast people on social media that probably live in their mom's basement are so quick to say,
I don't live in my mom's basement.
Like, he's not acting like a Christian when, like, you're not acting like a Christian. Like, the sin in your life, the plank in your eye, I mean, come on, God. Now. And so, but what
okay, first of all, why is he sniffing so much? Is he sniffing this much because he's on coke? Like, is this Don Jr.'s best friend or something? First of all. And second, I'm not saying he's not spiritual enough. I don't give a fuck if he's spiritual at all. I'm saying you are using him as a faith, as a religious figure. You're using him as a religious figure. And he's not even Christian. Or if he is, I can't tell. Like, you can't sit there and tell me that he is the second coming of Jesus, which people believe in this movement, and have Trump act the way that he does. That is absurd.
I love about President Trump is that he respects God. He respects pastors.
He does.
He'll drop curse words and then apologize to Franklin Graham for the curse word that he knows he's in a room full of pastors. He's like, sorry guys, but you need to stay on your toes.
Well, maybe he doesn't swear next time. You ever consider that one? You ever knock that one around the old noggin? Maybe he respects them enough to not swear around them? Possibly.
You know, it's like he's a unique individual, but he has a respect for God.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
And he has a respect for pastors. And I believe that he's for churches.
Anyway, so this is actually a piece of propaganda that's been floating around recently. Check this one out. This is from Lance Wallnau, who is a Christian nationalist who has worked with Trump directly, prayed over him and stuff. He's a right-wing extremist nutcase. You know the type. Listen to what Wallnau said about Trump just the other day.
The guy can't win for losing, is what we say up in New York.
Right.
So they got a complaint because he...
I'm from New York City, and I've never, ever said that in my entire fucking life, so...
didn't answer a question Air Force One about, are you certain of your salvation? Well, I hope I've done enough good works to get there. And immediately the Twitter sphere starts dumping on Paula White. What's she doing?
Okay, now hang on. I'm sorry. One more time there, Lance.
Answer a question Air Force One about, are you certain of your salvation? Well, I hope I've done enough good works to get there.
Okay. Trump said, I hope I've done enough good works to get there when asked if he's certain of his salvation. I don't remember hearing Trump say that. Maybe he did. But I think the reason that this would bother people is because Trump is espousing a works-based system, not a faith-based system. You're supposed to be able to get into heaven by grace and grace alone, so no man may boast. And Trump having no fucking clue what any of this means or, you know, what theology is or whatever, just said, well, I hope I'm doing a good job. Fascinating. Okay.
And immediately the Twitter sphere starts dumping on Paula White. What's she doing? Doesn't he understand how to get to heaven? Blah, blah, blah. So then he goes and it says, okay, let me go to the other extreme. I'm a lot like Jesus. Look at me here. And it's like, no, you don't do that either.
Shit, he's talking about Trump posting the picture of himself as Jesus. That's funny.
Remember this, the man is saved. but he's anointed with a kind of almost like a gift of wisdom for being able to navigate America through the crises it's in. But he's a baby Christian. And he's like, at times, 2 a.m. in the morning. I always look, when does he post it? 2 a.m. He's cranky. He's irritated. He's on.
Yeah, well, why the fuck is he on the twit in the first fucking place? Okay, I ordered TB, Taco Bell. That's short for Taco Bell, by the way. And the order was canceled. And now it's going again? I don't understand what the fuck is happening right now. I'm so confused. Is TB closed? Okay, let's continue.
On the phone, and then he's having a fight with Pope Leo, who he knows is meeting with Axelrod and meeting with Democrats, and then using his Vatican to critique the immigration issue in America. And he never said anything about the nuclear threat of Iran, but the Pope has a comment about any kind of violence that's there. And Trump basically said, that's it. I'm actually doing more for Jesus in the church than you are, knucklehead. And he...
Trump is doing more for the church than the Pope. Fucking please. Lance Walnut, he has to know that's bullshit. He has to know that, right? Theology is an academic exercise. It's a real full-blown, there are theology professors that write theology papers. Let me give you an example. I learned about this when learning about World War II and the Kirchenkampf, the church struggle in World War II. By the way, I'm writing another book about this, God's People, Christian Nationalism, and the Reich Churches. Anyway, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a theologist, a scholar. And now I know you're thinking, what do scholars, quote unquote, theology scholars even do? What could they possibly do? The answer is they come up with theological concepts and publish them for other theology scholars to analyze. And one of those theological concepts that Dietrich Bonhoeffer submitted was the concept of cheap grace. You remember that verse where Jesus saw the old woman providing or putting the last bit of money that she had into the donation, whatever, and he said, that is who you should be like. Well, Bonhoeffer expanded on that and said that there are two things in this realm. There's cheap grace and there's costly grace. Cheap grace is easily attained. You donate 10% to your church every month and you're not hurting for money, so it doesn't even, it doesn't even matter. It means nothing to you. That's cheap grace. Or, instead of making a meal for the church every Wednesday night, you just buy the meal. That's grace. That's good. It's noble. It's honorable to give food to people or whatever, to feed the church. But it's cheap. You didn't put effort in. Costly grace is attained through sacrifice. That's kind of the concept that Bonhoeffer laid down. And I think it's interesting. Some of his ideas are really interesting. But the point is that these people are genuinely, actually scholars, real scholars. And the idea that Lance Walnut doesn't know that is absurd. He absolutely knows what he's saying right now is complete nonsense. It's garbage. There is no way he does not know that. One more time.
Issue in America, and he never said anything about the nuclear threat of Iran, but the Pope has a comment about any kind of violence that's there. And Trump basically said, that's it. I'm actually doing more for Jesus and the church than you are.
The Pope, to become Pope, has to have written countless theological theses and dissertations and essays and shit like that to be able to get to the point that he was at. You have to have a ton of knowledge on the subject. You don't just become Pope. And claiming that Trump has done more for the church is just, I don't even know what word to use. Insane.
Knucklehead. And in my opinion, he pictured himself as doing more than the other guy who's supposed to be in charge of the Catholic Church. But it backfired because this isn't his line of country. He doesn't quite know how to meme because of the hypersensitivities of Christians in particular, which is ironic.
Oh, fucking please, dude. It was blasphemous. Donald Trump posted a blasphemous picture of himself as Jesus. And your dumbass fell for it, agreed with it, said, yes, I want more of that. He's a baby Christian. Come on, cut him some slack. What is wrong with you? I mean, it was insane justification after insane justification from this dude. He literally said Trump did more for Christianity than the fucking Pope. Really? Anyway, these people are shameless liars. Shameless liars. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, but one more thing I wanted to mention. Check this out. I found this interesting. Where is it? Wait. After the assassination attempt on Trump's life the other day, whenever that was, Trump gets out there and he says, this is why I need a ballroom. This is why I need a ballroom. Can I zoom in on this any more than this? No? No. Right, great. And the very next day, the parrots came out of the woodwork. Look at this. Libs of TikTok. This is why we need Trump's ballroom. Jack Posobiec. Thank God President Trump is building a ballroom at the White House. End wokeness. Now you know why the left is suing to block Trump's privately funded White House ballroom. Wall Street Mav? We need the White House ballroom. Meghan McCain, I don't want to hear one more fucking criticism of Trump's new ballroom at the White House. Would be real nice if the White House had its own ballroom, huh? Nick Adams, build the White House ballroom now. They're taking their cue from Donald Trump. This is how cults work. This is also, all right, let me rephrase. This is an example of Donald Trump pointing the direction and everybody follows it. He points in the direction and everyone follows. It's like they're setting the narrative and everyone just kind of jumps in line with it. It's fascinating to watch people jump to follow the direction of the administration. This is the propaganda arm doing its work. Absolutely wild, dude. And I guess the baby Christian thing, that's another propaganda line that they've been working on recently. That's the point here. They've been working on the he's a baby Christian line. Anytime he does something stupid and fucked up and, starts swearing on Easter Sunday, saying praise be to Allah, posts a picture of himself as Jesus, that shit. Anytime he does any of that, they'll just say, he's a baby Christian, cut him some slack. You were a baby Christian once. Okay, this is not baby Christian territory. This is blasphemy territory. If this is genuine, if he didn't know that this is blasphemy, somebody needs to sit him down and tell him, right? Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. These people are absurd human beings, all of them. 20. I don't think my food's coming. Nope. I don't think it's on its way. Very disappointed. I'm pretty hungry, so that sucks. All right, let's see. Do I want to hit another one? Trump is a baby Christian. Hit that one. Yeah, let's hit Beckwith.
Well, I just...
Hold on. Which is the newest one? I think it's this one. 2026, 330. Yeah, that's in order, I believe. There we are. What's this one? This one looks older, but I don't have a date on it. Weird. All right. This is Micah Beckwith. He's a Christian nationalist, and he's also lieutenant governor of Indiana, I believe. He's absolutely out of his mind. Yes, Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, Republican, Indiana. Listen to this.
Well, I just think, if that vote holds and we see that Virginia does amend their constitution to go down the redistricting path, I would just say, wake up, Christians. They are coming for you. And you can't pet a demon. I mean, I know people like to say just, hey, demons, stay over there. But
hey, don't tell me what I can't do. Maybe I want to pet a demon. You ever consider that one? Yeah, Republicans freaking out at this immediate moment because Virginia voted on whether to redistrict into, or let me rephrase, into a set of districts that would be more beneficial to Democrats. Basically, Democrats voted whether, or basically people in Virginia voted whether to gerrymander Virginia. And they decided, yes, it was a ballot referendum or whatever, I think. And the people of Virginia decided, yes, we do want to redistrict to give an advantage to Democrats. Now, in an ideal world, this wouldn't happen. I don't want this, actually. I don't want this. But this is the game that Republicans have chosen to play. They are redistricting Texas illegally, breaking all kinds of laws, and when it goes to the Supreme Court validates those law breaks. So it doesn't even matter if they broke the law. They're not going to pay for the consequences. Well, Democrats are playing the same game now. Republicans have been playing dirty this entire time. If you want to play dirty, Democrats can play dirty too. But for what it's worth, Democrats tried to push through an anti-gerrymandering bill, and Republicans refused to work with them. They refused to come on board because they wanted to gerrymander and play dirty. So welcome to dirty. They're going to bitch about it until they're blue in the face.
we just don't hurt us and we won't hurt you. It doesn't work that way. Evil will find you. And until strong men stand up and do something and fight fire with fire, then we will continue to lose ground. Our children.
That is literally what Democrats were doing, fighting fire with fire. The fact that he has the twig and berries to say something so brazenly bullshit is wild to me.
Will be warped. The curse will be over the land, as Pastor Kuhneman was saying. And so I think it's time. Like, I hope it fails, but at the same time, I don't think it will. I think it will pass. I've kind of been saying that all along, because the Democrats and the side of darkness, which again, Democrats aren't necessarily all dark, but they are being led by the minions and the voices of darkness. And they're going to win. They're playing to win. And so we have to wake up, and guys, step up. And if we win, if we go on the battlefield, we will win. The question is, will we enter the battlefield? That's just...
What the fuck does this analogy even mean, or metaphor, or whatever? If we go on the battlefield, we will win. What could he possibly mean by that, other than like killing people? I don't understand the metaphor at all. Who is not joining the battlefield that you think should be joining the battlefield? Is this like a runaway analogy?
Just what I don't know.
Anyway, listen to some of the other stuff he said. It's truly vile and insane.
We have a wall of separation of the church and state, right? That got warped in the 1940s by a Supreme Court justice. His name was Hugo Black. There's a case that came before the Supreme Court. Hugo Black was a KKK member. He hated blacks and he hated Catholics. And he did not like that Catholics were starting to stand up and say, what the KKK is doing to the blacks is not godly.
This is actually completely backwards. Like, everything that he's saying right now is completely made up. I remember covering this one. I'm not going to cover that one. It's too complex. Let's hit this one instead.
We're living in an era of Neville Chamberlains versus the Winston Churchills. And
oh, fascinating. This is my forte. I'm writing a book on World War II era churches and how the churches capitulated to Hitler and stuff like that. It's called God's People. Anyway, it's a set of 11 essays about different figures in the church struggle when Hitler tried to take it over. That's neither here nor there. Neville Chamberlain basically wrote to Hitler and visited him, if I'm not mistaken, and tried to make a deal with him and said, okay, you can have Czechoslovakia, but just stop there. Just don't do more. Don't try to take more shit than Czechoslovakia. And they signed a document. Neville Chamberlain was the head of the UK at the time, I believe. I think he got Hitler to sign a document, basically said they were going to stop at Czechoslovakia. I don't remember. But the point is, Hitler obviously didn't. And Neville Chamberlain's instinct was to protect the agreement and just capitulate and do whatever he could to make Hitler happy so that he wouldn't invade Britain or attack Britain. Eventually, Chamberlain was removed from his position, and Winston Churchill took over in his place after that, and Winston Churchill had to fight the war. He had no choice. They were attacking England and bombing it and everything else. So, yeah. He's saying we're in World War II now, and he wants people who are willing to physically fight in a war rather than somebody who's going to try to make peace with people.
And we have those 18 senators are Neville Chamberlain type. They think they can make peace with Hitler, make peace with evil, pet a demon, and that the demon will leave him alone.
Why does he keep saying that? Isn't that the second time he's said that, pet a demon? What does that even mean in this context?
And what I'm trying to tell them is, guys, the Democrat Party is not your grandparents' Democrat Party. This is not the party of JFK. JFK fought against the communists. Now his party wants to be the communists.
Literally not one single politician on the left, not one Democratic politician is communist. They're not even close to communist. As far as I'm aware, aside from maybe Mamdani, they are all capitalists. And for that matter, Mamdani is ultimately a capitalist too. He says he's socialist, I believe. But that's in the broadest, loosest of terms. Like, socialist as in he wants workers to have rights. That's what socialist means to him. That's it. Are they not coming? Oh, okay.
Very different time that we live in. And so what we're trying to get them to wake up and see is, guys, it is time to fight. For crying out loud, they tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice. They did assassinate.
Who is they? The first one was a Republican kid. The second one, I'm not even sure who that was, actually. It could have been a Republican, I don't know. It's not the left, quote unquote, trying to do the assassinations. It's lone wolf nutcases. And honestly, like if Joe Biden was assassinated, I would blame Donald Trump for that. Absolutely. And the right for their absolutely insane rhetoric, 100%. The left is not using insane rhetoric like that. Nothing like it. There is no equivalent on the left. My kid just walked outside, said that they were here. Hold on. That's weird. What is going on? She just like walked out the door and never came back. Okay, well, let's continue then.
Charlie Kirk, they are doing everything to destroy this great nation that God has given us. And
you catch what he said? They tried to assassinate, or they assassinated Charlie Kirk. The left. Just disgusting. Like, he lies for a living. Did you get it? Sweet.
it is now time for us to pull out the rod, be the shepherds that God has called us to be, and go fight. And so they don't see it. They think we can just be peaceful, we can be non-conflict, and it will go away. Literally, I've heard them say, well, this will...
Who is they in this scenario? Are they in the room with us right now? You said, I've heard them say. Who is they? He says, I've heard them say we need to be peaceful. He's talking about the right here. You're trying to tell me you've heard people on the right say, we don't want violence, we want to be peaceful? Who? What specific individuals have you heard say that to you? Because the right has completely lost their minds. They're out of their gourds, drunk on extremism and violence right now. Siri, turn on living room lights. Sorry. All right, thanks. Love you. This is completely made up. From a lieutenant governor.
Just pass. This will just blow over. It's not going to blow over. We lose this fight, we lose our future. And so that's
like, what fight is he even claiming to be fighting right now? What battle is the right losing? They have the House, the Senate, the judiciary, and the presidency. What fight are they fighting? What do they have left to do that they haven't done already? They own fucking everything. There's some stuff happening outside. And you know what? By the end of this, by the end of the 2 years, Republicans will have had 2 full years of complete and total unobstructed control of the government. They will have had complete and total control of every branch of government. And the country will look the way that they want it to look by the end of that. Because there's little to nothing that Democrats could do to prevent this insanity from happening. So what does the country look like? Well, it looks like a corrupt, hollowed out shell of what it once was. That's what it looks like. It looks like corruption all the way to the bottom. Sorry, hang on. Let me just grab something here real fast. 1 second. They forgot stuff. That's super sad. Okay.
That's what they just don't understand, and I think they're slowly starting to wake up to it. But it's been a lot harder than it should have been in Indiana.
Just sad. These people are insane, and they genuinely, seriously need help. Okay, tell me what you think about it in the comments. All right, 220. to 2:35. All right. Well, I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. He must be talking about the filibuster. He means the secret chiefs, right? Thank you so much for the super chats, everybody. I really appreciate that. And don't forget to check out my book. It'll be done soon, so keep a lookout, okay? All right, awesome. Later, everybody. Have a good